The other thing that was really cool about it was, well, I'm just going to quote your notes, 300 skinned animated characters. So they really did a pretty good job here of displaying not just an open world, but a populated open world. You know, that village scene that they were doing there was really, really impressive. How much is this CD Projekt Red? How much is this UE5?
Well, I would imagine it's a collaboration between the two that allowed such a thing to occur, because the metahuman characters we saw in the Unreal Engine 5 Matrix demo, they probably do not have the same level of fine grain animation and like fine grain, you know, like chores that they have to do during a day. If you've ever played the Witcher games, you can go to Novigrad at night and you can go during the day. It's a very different experience. Everyone's out and about versus everyone then goes inside and disappears for the day. So there's stuff in there that is from CD Projekt Red because their game has different, you know, functions that it needs to do. But in terms of like the way the rendering is done, I'd imagine a lot of that also does come from a deep collaboration with Epic. And that is the expensive part, that where in a lot of games, as you start having characters pile up in a scene, it tends to run really poorly. You can kind of see this in Novigrad in The Witcher 3's next gen version, where if you go to the center of Novigrad on like a Ryzen 5 3600 or a PS5, you'll start seeing frame rate dips and stuff like that. It's just all the characters. It's expensive. And especially in the context of using hardware ray tracing, depending upon what they're doing here, it gets even more expensive. So here they specifically talk about lighting the CPU burden of all these characters. I'm not sure how. I think I need more detail there. Well, that's what I hopefully find out when I go to Warsaw in just about a little under a week's time now, to talk with CDPR, because there's a lot of ways you can reduce the overhead of a character, and it's GPU processing, CPU processing, and I guess we'll find that out soon enough. But it's still pretty cool to see, because we'll see larger cities then, hopefully, in the next Witcher title.
Another thing we've got to talk about quickly is open world and streaming specifically, because that's kind of like the key challenge with any sort of open world game, is that obviously with such a large world to deal with, you're constantly shuttling data in and out of, from storage to memory, etc., etc. And historically, Unreal Engine has had some issues here with the infamous traversal stuttering problems that we've seen. No traversal stutters in this one, though. So any explanations or clues as to why?
They do directly call it out in the demo. They describe it as a new streaming system. But if you go to the Unreal 5.6 blog, as well as just scroll back in time to a presentation at an Unreal Fest not too long ago, from a gentleman whose name escapes me at this very moment, who works at CD Projekt Red. Excuse me, it's a little early. They came up with a new lightweight streaming system that essentially, the issue in Unreal Engine 5 was never, we have to get data off of disk into memory. That wasn't it. It was actually super efficient at that, as we've seen in the past when we would measure stuff like, it required only like a SATA SSD. It wasn't actually an issue, that aspect. But the issue was initializing the actors. And a lot of things could be actors in Unreal Engine, just based upon the way an artist would have set up the scene. They place a mug somewhere, and it's using the base actor system. And it has a lot of extra stuff attached to it that it doesn't need if it's just a static mug, right? And they needed a new way to stream in such simple geometry that doesn't require extra doodads on it, like stuff that it won't end up using. And they came up with a light streaming actor system. And there's a plugin now for Unreal Engine 5 based upon certain aspects of that CD Projekt Red made and developed. And it's a generic plugin that you can elect to use for a game. And they seem to be using it here. The big issue was like the game thread update at that moment, and hopefully allow it so that it is more graceful and has more consistent frame times when running through an open world and coming upon areas where there's a difference in density or new objects are coming in that have to be initialized. In the demo, like I said earlier, it was flawless in terms of frame time. And I ran it through our tools, and that's what it showed. And you can see that by eye regarding that. But if you watch it technically a couple times while they're traversing through that large open world, with the camera flying around, you can still see some like hitches in a way. And running through the footage manually, you can see that they aren't actually the game freezing for a second like you would expect from a normal frame time hitch. Rather, it's a camera hitch. And I found out in games, a lot of games like Clair Obscur, Jedi Survivor, Silent Hill on the consoles and on PC, that even if a frame time blip wouldn't occur, you could still see the animation in the moment when a frame time blip could occur. It would still break the animation. So animation would stop really quickly and then hyper accelerate the next frame to keep up with the time, the delta time. And that actually is still shown in this demo. And that actually may be a deeper seated issue within Unreal Engine. But at the moment, at least, it at least didn't show off, the demo didn't show off like big streaming hiccups, like which usually if you try and run the camera at full tilt through that Matrix Awakens demo, even on a high-end PC, you're going to see big hitches. And this demo didn't show that off at well. So that's a good thing for the future, but that's one thing we're going to have to wait and see till the final game to see what it actually means for performance.